Hey guys, Tony here. Back once again, and as you could probably tell by the title, I'm here to talk about something that's really near and dear to me. And if you follow my channel at all, you'll probably know that I'm a massive Neil Young fan, and I have been for most of my life, really, since I was probably about 14 or 15. And I first heard Rust Never Sleeps, and that just was sort of it for me. I was around 94, 95. And I gotta say, I followed his career that whole time since that point, and it's, one of the most rewarding musicians I've ever gotten into, and I've had the privilege of seeing him live 19 times now, and every time has been great. It's been different. I gotta say, and I say this often, but as far out as my listening will get sometimes, my music listening. I've gotten into jazz very deeply. I've gotten into Brazilian music, experimental music, psychedelic music, krautrock, on and on. There is something to be said for having that one artist or one musician that you sort of hold in the highest regard, that person you keep coming back to, and hopefully that band or artist is still relevant, still around, and still making great music. For me, Neil is that perfect guy. The guy's been making music since, the mid-'60s, let's say. And from that point to now, it's almost like listening to different artists throughout his career because all the changes that he's gone through. So it's perfect for that. It's really hard to get bored with one album because the guy has just so much material. And it usually is, but particularly, it's a great time to be a Neil Young fan because the guy is, at 68, he is still great. I saw him, which I'm going to talk about, I saw him recently, still on top of his game, still a thrill to watch perform. His voice is still great, and he still puts out great material, in my opinion, So I want to talk about a couple things here, all Neil Young related. I want to talk about the show I saw at Carnegie Hall a month ago. I'm a little late with all this, so forgive me, but I'll try not to keep you too long. I could really go on and on about Neil especially. But, yeah, my 19th. I think I mistakenly said that it would be my 20th Neil Young show, and I counted. It was actually my 19th. I hope to get to 20 and well beyond. And that may sound like a lot to some of you, but I know to some people who watch this, that's really a drop in the bucket for Neil Young shows. So he announced a 4-night run at Carnegie Hall. I forget when, maybe 2 months ago or something, and it was on a Wednesday that they were announced, and the pre-sale for the tickets went up on Friday. So tickets these days, especially at like Carnegie Hall for Neil Young, are not cheap. So if you needed to save, you were kind of out of luck, So my birthday is right around that time, December. So this was sort of my birthday gift from my wife, and I only got one ticket. First time seeing Neil alone, and it was actually my first time seeing Neil stone sober as well too. So anyway, fantastic show. So the day of the show arrives, I live in Connecticut. To get to New York City, it's about an hour and a half drive. The train's a little longer with all the stops. I took the train. I went a little too early, had some time to kill. I went record shopping, of course, and the show started at 8 o'clock. I think doors opened at 7. I went from the Village, took a cab, and I just said, bring me to Carnegie Hall, and I was there at 20 after 4, so quarter after 4. And had I been there a little bit earlier, I would have caught Neil going in for sound check. So I get out of the cab, I cross the street, and I see Neil's bus, and I think, so I go down there, and I park myself right by the stage door, right next to the stage door, like it's right here. And I said, I'm not moving. And if I'd been there earlier, I would have caught him going in, but I still stayed, and nobody else was there. And I've always wanted to meet Neil. I'm not big on meeting celebrities and etc. But Neil is like the one guy I would just love to have a quick interaction with. An autograph or just anything. But anyway, so I stood there and waited, and somebody else showed up. There were some autograph seekers, not necessarily fans. After talking to them, they were more looking for autographs to sell. Which they weren't getting, but anyway. And I learned from one of them that Neil had gone in at 4 o'clock for the sound check. But I stayed there. Excuse me. And I stayed there. Little after 5, I'm on the phone with my daughter, my 4-year-old daughter. She had come home that day, and I wasn't there. And usually Daddy's there, you know, but I wasn't. So she kind of wanted to know why. I did explain to her before, but she's 4, you know. So they called me, and I'm on the phone with her, and I'm just kind of explaining and asking her how her day was. And I look in the stage door. It's a glass door, and I see Neil Young coming down the stairs. And I'm like, you know, I was like, honey, I gotta go. And I thought I hung up the phone, but I didn't. And she had given the phone to my wife. My wife took the phone and was listening. I didn't know. The phone was in my pocket. And she heard me sort of phoning over Neil. He came out. He didn't stop. He was with his manager and his road manager. And I'm such a fan. I know all these people by sight. But he wasn't stopping. But I was still like, Neil! You know, she heard all that and everything. But it was surreal, you know. I'd seen him front row a few times, but I've never seen him off the stage. And so that was sort of just surreal for me, and it was cool just to see him. But I stayed there. I knew he was on the bus, so I said maybe I'd get another chance. But a little after 7, I'd been there for a while, and it was cold, and I was hungry, but I stayed. And a little after 7, he comes off the bus again with his wife Peggy, and just walked. There were a bunch of people there this time, you know, wanting the same thing as I did. But again, he wasn't stopping, and he just went in. So I wasn't disappointed. I know how he is with that. I figured he wasn't going to stop, so I wasn't disappointed. But immediately after that, I went right into Carnegie Hall. I'd never been there before. It's a beautiful place, great theater, and I had front row of the balcony. So you go up 3 flights of stairs, and you walk down the balcony to get to the front row, and this balcony does not mess around. It's, like I said, 3 stories up, and it felt higher, actually, and there's really no ledge in front of you. There was like a barrier that came up to my knees, and that was it. And if somebody were to like push you, or if you were to fall, I imagine it'd be certain death, you know. So it took a minute to sort of get used to that. So yeah, I'm right in front. It sort of felt like sitting on a ledge, but so yeah, Neil comes on, and nobody really knew what he was going to do, first of all, until you saw the stage set up. It was just announced Neil Young. You figured it'd be solo acoustic, but it was never really confirmed. And it wasn't until you saw the stage set up that you realized it'd be solo acoustic, because you just sort of know his stage setup. He sits in the middle of the stage. He's encircled by probably about 8 guitars, all acoustic, a banjo, and 3 pianos. He's got a regular piano, his pump organ, and a tack piano. So right then you knew it was going to be solo. I'd seen Neil exactly 1 year before, almost, with Crazy Horse. And this is what I talk about with Neil in regards to the differences in what he does. Now, the show with Crazy Horse a year ago could not be more different than seeing him solo acoustic. I'd seen him solo acoustic before in '99. I'd seen him solo electric a few times, but solo acoustic and compared to that Crazy Horse show is just like, you know, you have this loud sonic assault by Crazy Horse, and it's just like, you know, and Neil on the electric guitar, it's almost like, you know, the way he plays, I mean, he plays a lot of noise. It's almost avant-garde at times, the way he plays, and his use of feedback. I mean, you could tell the guy really has this intimate relationship with electricity, you know, and it's something else. But this show was a completely different animal. The set he played that night was phenomenal. He was in a really good mood. There was a little more banter with the audience. I didn't think the audience was really disrespectful. I'd seen much worse in the past. But there were a couple times where Neil sort of commented and said, you know, he said, you guys paid a lot of money to be here tonight, so you should be able to hear yourselves, and people calling out songs. But it wasn't that bad, I thought. There was a lot made in the press. At one point, Neil went into Ohio, and some of the audience, and I hate this, but some of the audience started trying to clap in time, you know. And Neil just stopped and said, you know, hey, you guys are, you know, you're way off, and, you know, maybe I should call the musicians union, and you know. And he made a comment about there being, you know, there's a lot of distance between you and me, meaning in time, you know. And there was a lot made of that in the press, like, oh, you know, Cranky Neil starts his 4-night run at Carnegie Hall. I had seen Neil scold the audience so much worse than this. It was like joking, you know, like it was nothing. I'd seen him call out one single audience member for yelling and calling him an asshole, telling him to shut up, you know. So this was nothing, and there was a lot made of it in the press for whatever reason. But anyway, yeah, this set list too was phenomenal. I should say, every time I've seen Neil live, he's always had new material. This is the only time I think I've seen him where he didn't have any new material. Now, the guy has acknowledged that he's not writing as much as he used to. I still think he's probably got another great album or two in him, you know, if not more. But that being said, yeah, it was mostly just a lot of sort of standards, you know, for him. But that being said, a lot of the songs here I never heard performed live. As a really big fan, what you want is the obscure stuff, the stuff he never plays, and etc. And he played a lot of stuff that probably just really made everybody happy. You know, the deep fans and the more casual fans. You know, I don't know if he assumes that most of the audience there are not hardcore fans, and I don't know what it is, but it's very rare he'll come out with something off of an album from 3 years ago. Like, you know, he won't just come out and play something off of Illinois or, you know, or Prairie Wind or something. It's very rare he does that. So the set list, he played 21 songs. He played 2 covers. He covered Burt Jansch. He sort of paid tribute to Burt Jansch and to Phil Ochs. It's been announced that he has a covers album, solo acoustic covers by singer-songwriters that he likes, coming out in Third Man Records with Jack White. So it was sort of material from that. He played Changes by Phil Ochs, which is a phenomenal song, and he really did a good version of it. And he also did The Needle of Death by Burt Jansch. Killer. So he opened with From Hank to Hendrix. Great song. And then he played On the Way Home, which I never heard him play live before, from the Buffalo Springfield. He played Only Love Can Break Your Heart. Love in Mind, which is a rarity. Like, he doesn't play that too often these days. Excuse me. Are You Ready for the Country? Actually never heard him play that before, and he played it great on tack piano. He played Someday, which was a surprise, off of Freedom. That's sort of a deep track for sure, and I wasn't expecting that, but it was awesome. He played Harvest, Old Man, Going Back off of Comes a Time. Never heard him play that. Let's see. Going Back, A Man Needs a Maid. He played Ohio, which I mentioned. He played a really moving version of Southern Man, which he very rarely plays these days. I heard him play it before with Crosby, Stills, and Nash, but this solo acoustic version of Southern Man was just phenomenal. He played Mr. Soul on the pump organ. Excellent, really sort of dark version of it on the pump organ and harmonica. I heard some people say they didn't like it. I loved it. Needle of Death, and then he went right into the Needle, The Damage Done. He played Harvest Moon. Flying on the Ground Is Wrong, again from Buffalo Springfield. Great song. Never heard him play that before. After the Gold Rush, he played Changes, which I mentioned. Heart of Gold. Played Comes a Time, which, believe it or not, I never heard him play Comes a Time live. And he played Long May You Run. He closed with that, and that was the encore. 2 encores, I think. Comes a Time and Long May You Run. Phenomenal show. It was really, really special for me just to see him at Carnegie Hall. He really acknowledged the sort of importance of playing Carnegie Hall, and he talked about his first time playing there in 1970. He played 2 shows there in 1970. His father attended one of the shows, and his mother attended the other. They were divorced, and they, you know, went to different nights. And he talked about how his father, Scott Young, who was a writer, he's no longer with us, but he wrote a review of that concert, you know, about his son, you know. And Neil said he wanted to bring the review and read it, but he forgot it. But yeah, it was an excellent show, and really, you know, he played a lot of the material sort of from that period, you know, from 1970. He played Carnegie Hall one other time, I think with a band in like 73. Maybe like the Time Fades Away period. But yeah, excellent show. Really glad I went. And what was sort of a perfect companion right before the show, a month before the show, Neil put out Live at the Cellar Door, part of his Archives release. This is Archives number 2.5. I think there was a sort of wasn't planned on, which Kent's, you know, released disc number 2.5. You know, I think it was just sort of decided to put out. So this is sort of a legendary thing where Neil played 6 nights at the Cellar Door in Washington, D.C. in 1970. He had also played there in 1969 with Crazy Horse. People have said, hey, is the cellar door, is the line in A Needle and the Damage Done? I caught you knocking on my cellar door in reference to this place. And who knows? I mean, people read into it. But if it is, it probably has more to do with the fact the show was in 69 where he played with Crazy Horse. And I think at that time Danny Whitten was pretty strung out. I don't know. It's just sort of speculation. But this is a fantastic record, and I highly recommend it. So I can't help but compare these to his other solo acoustic archive releases, Massey Hall there, and Live at the Canterbury House right there. So Live at the Canterbury House is early. It's, I think, 68. So you have Neil in a very intimate setting, and he feels very, he sounds nervous. There's a lot of joking and bantering with the audience, which is rare for him. But nonetheless, it's a great set. He plays good. His voice isn't, he doesn't have like the confidence in his voice yet, you could tell. But then you have Massey Hall, which is 1971. And here, that's a phenomenal set. That is just top notch. Great performance. He sounds really confident. You know, that is just as good as it gets. I would recommend that if you don't have that, I would say that is probably more essential than this. But that being said, this is fantastic. So what I think you have here is sort of the combination. You have Neil having the confidence that he does in Massey Hall in the intimate setting of Live at Canterbury House. It's probably the best way I could describe it. Sound quality on this is phenomenal. It is top notch. It really is. So I will say again, Neil's vinyl releases. Now I hear so much about the price of them for the vinyl, and all I can say is that these records stand alone in my collection as far as the quality of them. People complain a lot about the quality of new vinyl releases. All I can say is that, you know, if you want the best, this is sort of the price for it, because Neil really has an obsession with quality, and I could just imagine him saying, I want the best pressing plant to press the vinyl on the, you know, virgin vinyl, 180 gram, the best available, best cardstock, best ink available, best everything, you know. I can't confirm any of this, but these really stand alone, and the sound quality of the vinyl is incredible. I mean, it really, not to sound really cliched, but it sounds like Neil is in the room with you. The louder you turn it up, the better it sounds. It is just that good, and yeah, the quality of the recording itself is just incredible. The guitar sound. Now about the performance, a lot of piano. Neil says, I think on this, that he's only been playing piano for a year, and he requested a 9-foot Steinway for this performance at this place. Now, this is a club that only held 200 people. It was a great club. The Cellar Door, actually, if you know Miles Davis Live Evil, same place where that was recorded, the Cellar Door, which is Live Evil by Miles Davis, is also incredible. But this is about Neil. But yeah, so you have, after the Gold Rush, the album had just come out. So this is at a real turning point in his career. Crosby, Stills, and Nash had really sort of put him on the map, made him much more of a well-known name. And they had sort of broken up, I think, just before this. He had played in Washington, D.C. not long ago at a theater, a big sort of amphitheater with Crosby, Stills, and Nash. And here he is now playing in a 200-seat club, you know. So it's interesting. So he opens with Tell Me Why. Just a fantastic version of that. Only Love Could Break Your Heart. He plays After the Gold Rush, which is new at that time. And you don't have all the people yelling after he says, I felt like getting high, which is standard. Every time he plays it, every time he plays that song, everybody applauds that line. But Expecting the Fly, a fantastic version of that on here. Bad Fog of Loneliness, great track. Debuts Old Man. First time played in public, I believe. First public performance of that. Birds, great track. Don't Let It Bring You Down. See the Sky Above the Rain. Again, one of the best performances right here. Cinnamon Girl on piano. A lot's been said about that, and yes, it sounds like it's always been done on piano. The arrangement is just perfect, and it's like I don't want to say it's like a different song, but it sounds like it could have always been done on piano. It's great. I Am a Child, Down by the River, one of my favorite performances of Down by the River, solo acoustic on here, and it's really good. And then he closes with Flying on the Ground Is Wrong. Again, incredible version. Buffalo Springfield track. So he's talking about the piano, this 9-foot Steinway, and he's playing with the piano wire, you know, the strings, and sort of making these eerie sounds and talking and sort of joking around and talking about what the song is about, you know. And then those first sort of, that opening sort of chords come in for the song, and it's just perfect, you know. And again, what's interesting too is that Massey Hall was only 7 weeks after this performance. And it's also said that these were sort of almost rehearsal shows in a way to sort of get ready for Carnegie Hall too, which was around this period as well, his 1970 Carnegie Hall show. But yeah, I read Massey Hall was only 7 weeks after this, so that's interesting too. But yeah, a fantastic release. I will say, if you don't have Massey Hall, I would recommend that first. But that being said, this is no less essential. I mean, if you're a fan, this is well worth getting. Excellent. So I just wanted to talk about that a little bit. And really quickly, I got to give a huge thank you to my good friend Jan. Jan sent me, he'd sent me things before. Jan lives in Holland, and he has got a fantastic Neil Young collection. I've talked about it before. I'll put a link down below. My collection just doesn't even touch his. He's got an amazing Neil Young collection. He's got everything. I mean, the singles, the bootlegs, he's got it all. Massive Neil Young collection. He's got a website where you can browse his collection, and there's music playing in the background while you do it. I'll put a link below. But anyway, he sent me this as a gift. Now, this is a bootleg. Neil Young, Long May He Run. So mostly this is a show from Texas, 1976. A great show, solo acoustic. I'd heard this performance before. It might be considered part of the, I don't know if it's the Joel Bernstein tapes or what, but it's a great show. I think it's one part it's his birthday, and he had turned 31, I believe, at this time. And but anyway, excellent show. I mean, a lot of great tracks. He plays a lot of songs there. The Campaigner, The Old Laughing Lady, Human Highway. This is the stuff After the Gold Rush, Harvest, Mr. Soul, Here We Are in the Years, Journey Through the Past, Heart of Gold, and White Line. In A Man Needs a Maid. And then he plays Give Me Strength. No One Seems to Know. Really glad to have that this stuff on wax, you know. Too Far Gone, Pocahontas, Roll Another Number, Hawks and Doves, and then there's a War Song with Graham Nash, which is a studio thing, you know, is a rare single war song. But anyway, Jan, thank you so much for this. Like, it has a good home here. He just happened to have an extra one, and these are really rare these days. I think there's one on Discogs right now for like $200 or something ridiculous. And it is on colored vinyl. Blank labels, yeah. So this is awesome. So there you go. For those of you who ask me a lot to talk about Neil more in my videos, here you go. You have, I don't know, something like 20 minutes worth, 23 minutes of me talking Neil. So I hope you enjoy. Hope it wasn't too long for you or too boring, but I imagine to sit through this, you got to be a fan. So leave me comments, and thank you for watching. I'll see you soon. I have a fantastic new vinyl finds video really soon, so I'll see you then. Thanks.